Hello and welcome to another episode of my video diary. My name is David Burns and this video is going to be a look at one of the oldest guitars that I still have in my collection. This is my Tanglewood Acoustic, which I have had for about 17 years, and I've just got it back from some major guitar surgery at Iain's Guitar Repairs. Now, before I dive into talking about this guitar and what's been happening to it, I want to say a big thank you again to all of the people on Patreon who are supporting me making these videos, and to everyone who has subscribed to the YouTube channel and hit like on videos. Now that COVID restrictions have pretty much come to an end here in Scotland, it's not going to be too long until there's going to be a lot more live music videos on the channel and not just me talking at home to a camera in my spare room. I've been gradually easing back into playing gigs with a few local open mics, and I'm going to be posting some videos about them soon. Now this week what I want to do is I want to talk about this guitar here. This is my Tanglewood Acoustic. It's one of the oldest guitars in my collection that I still play regularly. I first got this guitar 17 years ago, not long after I had graduated from Stirling University and I was looking to get started as a professional musician. My first band, Proverbial Creek, had broken up and I was about to start work on a solo album. This is not a drill. I'd also just started busking around Stirling, and the acoustic that I had at the time, it was a very cheap Ovation copy. It was what I could afford at the time when I was a skint student, but it didn't play very well and it didn't sound great no matter if it was plugged in or mic'd up. So if I was going to make a living at this, I was going to need an upgrade. Thankfully, I was lucky enough to graduate whilst there were still a few years left of the last Labour government before the Tories got back in and subjected everyone to years of miserable austerity. And at that point there were still government-backed schemes to get people into the music industry. I got some help starting up through the New Deal for Musicians course, and they put me in contact with people at the Prince's Trust who were able to get me some funding to invest in new equipment and go through the process of starting up my own business. This guitar here was the first thing that I ever bought as a professional musician. I'm not sure exactly which model it is, as the label inside has faded over the years, and I didn't really know enough about guitars at the time to know all that much about the differences between them. What I knew was I wanted something that would be good enough for recording and gigging, and one that wouldn't look too tiny when all of 6'4" of me stood up to play. So armed with that highly technical list of requirements to sound good and not look ridiculous on a tall guy, I headed to Glasgow and McCormick's Musical Instruments on Bath Street, sadly now since long gone. They recommended a few things, brought over some instruments that I could try out, and let me spend an afternoon playing them to find something that suited me. Now, I cannot recommend enough, when you're looking for an instrument and you're just starting out and don't know a whole lot about what different guitars feel and sound like, get yourself down to a guitar shop and take full advantage of all the knowledge of their staff. They have been playing guitar for years, they're working all day, surrounded by guitars. They can point you in the direction of things that will probably be right for you, and let you try them out until you know which one is going to be the best for your needs. And that goes even once you do know what you're doing with guitar. You can buy things sight unseen on the internet, and I've taken a few risks on guitars over the years that way, and most of them have turned out to be okay, but nothing will really ever substitute for actually getting a guitar in your hands and trying it out live for yourself before you commit to making the purchase. Even two models exactly the same from the same manufacturer, there are going to be slight differences in the bits of wood that the guitar is made from, and so two guitars that are ostensibly the same can still sound and feel different. So the best thing to do is to try before you buy. Get down to a guitar shop and let them guide you to what is going to be the exact right instrument for you. A day spent trying things out at McCormick's led me to this instrument. This is a Tanglewood Jumbo Acoustic, which was easily miles better than anything that I'd been playing with before. This was to go on to be my main acoustic guitar for years, playing all of the recording and gigs around my first solo records, gigging from London to Inverness and back again, and even as it started to wear out from the constant gigging over decades, and I retired it from shows when I bought my Epiphone EJ200, which I use with Furore Ceilidh Band, I still kept this as my main busking guitar. This was partly to keep the Epiphone from the constant wear and tear of street playing, partly for the sentiment of this being the guitar that I first started earning a living with. Now, as I say, there can be a great deal of wear and tear that goes with being used for busking. I can be playing for hours at a time, going out and playing most days, and as I'm playing in Scotland, you cannot rely on the weather always being ideal. The original Shadow pickup had to be replaced after getting caught in one too many of the sudden torrential downpours of rain that are the hallmarks of a typical Scottish summer. It's got dents and dings from where it's been attacked by Neds. There's a patch on the bottom of it that had to be glued back together where it crashed to the ground one day when the strap button came loose mid-song. There's areas around the pickguard from years of strumming hard enough to be heard in the city centre before battery-powered busking amplifiers became a thing. So this guitar has had a hard life. But none of that really interfered with how the instrument played though, so I kept on battering away on it. Like the story of the frog being dropped into a pan of cold water that's being slowly heated, the damage that was being done to it was happening too gradually for me to really notice it, and my playing technique just slowly adapted to a few little quirks of the instrument. It wasn't really until lockdown and putting the guitar away for a couple of years until it was safe to go back out that I ever really had long enough away from it to notice that it had so much wear over the years that it was becoming borderline unplayable. When I started back busking after COVID restrictions had eased off, I started noticing that the frets had been worn away so much that there were grooves almost down to the fingerboard wood where the strings had cut through them from years of being pressed down. The bridge and the nut had also suffered, and some notes were now buzzing so much that they sounded less like a guitar and more like a sitar. Now, if I wanted to keep this guitar, some repairs were going to have to be made. Now, there are a lot of basic guitar maintenance things that you can do for yourself, but for things like refretting, unless you know exactly what you're doing, this is the kind of job best left to a professional. So I dropped this guitar off with Iain's Guitar Repairs here in Glasgow a couple of weeks ago and left him to perform some minor miracles to get it back into a playable condition. He has removed all of the old worn frets, replaced them with new fret wire, cleaned up the wear on the bridge, slightly reduced the action with some truss rod adjustments, and the refret and setup have got this guitar sounding better than it has done in years. And without the strings being inhibited by dodgy frets and catching in a worn bridge, they're free to vibrate and ring with far more life than I thought I would ever hear from this instrument again. Thank you to Iain's Guitar Repairs for restoring one of my favourite guitars, and thank you for watching. If you've enjoyed this video, please do hit like, subscribe, click the bell icon for updates when I post new videos, head over to patreon.com/davidburns, and please do check out my band Marshall Chipped. Our new album May You Live in Interesting Times is out now on Bandcamp and on most streaming sites. I'm away to busk with a guitar that's sounding fresher than it has done in years. Take care, and I will see you next time. Goodbye.